Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I'm bringing you the review for Arslan, the Warriors of Legend. Basically another collaboration title like Dragon Quest Heroes with the Dynasty Warriors system and engine, which I reviewed recently, by the way. Really, you have another series, a bit like Assassin's Creed when you think about it, except every year when one of these games gets released, most people just shrug and don't get all riled up. But let's see if there's a reason, shall we? As always, if you like the review, maybe subscribe. Or don't, it's a free country, depending on which one you're in. So here's the review for the Warriors of Legend. Fantasy trope storybook princes, levels that look like a PS3's running in the background, and single-handedly ending the lives of an entire nation of dudes poor enough that they just had to join military service. Graphics are up first. First off, at 1440p with the GTX 980, I was actually getting a pretty variable 60 frames per second, dropping down tremendously in some areas into the low 20s, and then swiftly climbing back up. It always seemed to want to stick at 60, but never really seemed to be able to. Strangely, many times it wasn't necessarily during battles or super heavy moments, but particular areas in the game world having the camera swung over them. Notorious for questionable FPS in the past, these titles in the end, have always had this kind of issue. As an average, it was still above 30, but variable FPS bothers me to no end. Those who want to drop the resolution to 1080p and play with the surprisingly robust graphical options in the launcher should be able to play this at a really good frame rate, higher than the 30 FPS I was getting, unlike prior titles as well. Now, I'd say that Warriors of Legend performs better than most and has far more options, but in the end, technically, it's far from perfect. Of course, that's technically speaking. Artistically speaking, I find the cell shading is amazing with in-game graphics, not meeting those of the anime cutscenes in environmental detail and color depth, but easily exceeding them elsewhere, especially when seeing the characters come to life as playable warriors, and their cell lining and separation run from okay to absolutely outstanding. Though on a couple characters, as with any cell shading, due to the very technical techniques you use, you get some smashing together of different parts. Now, from an artistic standpoint, the characters continue to remind us just how tragically boring the Dynasty Warriors characters can appear over time, as well as when an entire anime was created for you. From an animation standpoint, this is straight up magic going on. I mean, there's one dude that attacks with the equivalent of kissing unicorn farts and happy dreams. This has to be the happiest go lucky frigging weapon I've ever seen in a game. It's a paintbrush that showers the world in a mixture of neon paint, exploding light brights, and about 30,000 rainbows all fighting over the last pot of gold. All the while, the character's whisking and tapping the brush as if he's clearing it of additional paint. Absolutely stupendous personality there. Another character spins and dances and pirouettes around the screen, Frozen World style. Hey, you know what? I shot you like 3 times with an arrow, but spinning a full 360 and doing it a 4th time really hammers home that I'm better than you. The mix of characters is both unique and reflected incredibly well on screen. And their power, because frankly, once again, these guys are called Warriors of Legend, is perfectly represented. However, the locations are still terrible in comparison, though there are a few noticeable standouts in the end. As with these games, every damn time you play, the environments creep up to slap you and remind you that the core engine is doing something behind the scenes that should be illegal. That being said, the first time you slapdash about 30 warriors across the face with your sword like you're embarrassed at their actions, then sit down and start playing music right in the middle of battle because frankly no one there is your equal, you realize just how much personality can be driven by good animation and how enjoyable that can be. It is absolutely stunning at times and mediocre at others. This will come down to an artistic presentation versus purely technical discussion and argument I can already see. As I went from Dragon Warrior, thinking there was no chance of liking the presentation of any title after that, probably as much, I have to say, I enjoy this title's artistic representation more than I did DW. Sound, music, and voice.
1万もの騎兵を指揮させるわけにはいかんのだよ。
敵の数が多いゆえ、ダリオン教の信仰じゃね。あの御人のこと、万に一つもないとは思う。
ファランギーストも万に一つもないのであれば、代わりに俺の心配をしても。
お主のことはついほども心配しておらぬから、安心するがよい。
And sound is always up first in this trilogy of audio awesome, from clubs whacking warriors, spearing soldiers, and swords slicing, well, everyone, sound is pretty good. It can get muddy here and there, which is a bit both of a problem simply due to the high numbers of characters on screen, but can also be brought forward by most weapons having those various large After Effects sounds that remind you just how fast this character is swinging his sword. Now that being said, if 45 people were suddenly thrown into the air by some dude hitting them, all with a 10-foot steel rod, and then somehow leaping into the air, flying above them, and magically summoning them all back down into the ground in a cosmic rebound joke, I'm not sure what that would sound like, but here, it still sounds pretty good. Though there is some cloning of weapon impacts, and I would have loved for the bows to have a more varied firing sound, as many people just don't seem to understand that every single bow has a very unique sound when fired, and it also changes up every time you fire it. And probably more so when you're flipping upside down, loading fiery arrows into it, and shooting 30 bad guys. Honestly, this thing channels the Matrix fantasy style. Music. You know, it's okay, but it is not my favorite. Much of it's cribbed from the anime, and therefore fans are going to be fine with it. Or not. It's big, it's bombastic, it's fully orchestrated, and pretty much no matter what you're doing on screen, just like other games that do this kind of thing, it's apparently the coolest thing ever done on screen. Huge horns, violins, woodwind sections blast out during army collisions, and even during the quieter times, it's still like someone snuck in and turned the dial to epic and ran off before someone could notice. I like it, but it lacks a great deal of subtlety, not unlike the title itself when you think about it. Voice. I think it's best to have an understanding of what you're getting. In this game, you get Roman-nosed European characters yelling at one another about inquisitors in Japanese, while someone in the background flings a magical paintbrush around, painting the world in Skittle colors. So as long as you know what you're getting into, you're golden. There's no English dub, and the Japanese voiceovers are fairly well done, though tonally you're still occasionally dealing with some odd age appearance issues where someone has chosen Clint Eastwood to voice over a 14-year-old and vice versa. Now, not all the characters have that, but occasionally you do get that weird mix. I also have to say, due to this being an anime with an absolutely history lesson full of background, the characters talk incessantly. I don't mean most of the time. I mean, this is 3 kids in the bathroom during class break, yackers, absolutely freaking talking, and the ability to play and not miss stuff unless you understand Japanese is going to be sorely tested. In fact, it felt like its own game. Not die and see how many people are talking and what they're saying by reading the subtitles could be a new minigame in the making. It's still good though. Gameplay. First, on a game like this, let's talk about control for a second. I was disappointed to see oddities with control here. Basically, if you don't use a controller, many of the tutorial's keyboard prompts don't show up. It's an odd pairing. They ended up getting tagged on as 360 controls. Also, there's no targeting. Yeah, you got that right. In the midst of battle, you're basically asked to find the bouncing general with the title above his head as you quite literally create mini black holes with your Sword of Galactic Oh Dear Jesus +1. It's tough as nails at times to figure out where someone is. Now, that being said, if you just kill everybody, you'll probably win anyway. These titles treat subtlety like screwing at church. It has no real place here. Now, this is Dynasty Warriors games through and through. You take a series of obviously medically improved super soldiers through a variety of locations whilst cutting, slashing, slamming, spelling, frying, freezing, crushing, and killing every single bad guy in your way. Speaking of bad guys, yeah, the AI is about the same as past titles, which means everyone's basically yelling, "Come at me, bro!" Though everyone wants to kill you, they're also afraid of human contact, so their attack plan boils down to crowding you and hoping you come down with a phobia of large groups and kill yourself. Now, that means it's up to you to instigate any action, and at that point, they start swinging. This is obviously a consideration of the game engine and the fact that everyone swinging at the same time would result in the game being called Warriors of No One Remembers, because they all died instantly. No higher level characters seem to run normal AI routines though, and frequently they block, sidestep, and attack from behind. However, full-on boss characters can run the gamut from needing technique and skill to needing nothing more than understanding where the attack button is. The worst offenders are those that come with shields that require adult movie level pounding to hammer down before doing any damage. It's sad that we see this design decision where so many other improvements have been made in this title. Now, Warriors of Legend follows the first season of the anime very closely, which is both a positive and a negative when it comes to story. If you haven't seen it and want to, you're going to see a pretty robust, if a bit truncated version just by playing this game. If you have no clue what it is, you're going to see an interesting anime play out as you run around and do incredibly linear activities in the battle arenas to move forward, because the Dynasty Warriors games have never been known to be flexible in their progression on the field. Now, by moving forward, you watch cutscene after cutscene of story and characters. While this action is enjoyable and the characters amazing to fight with, it can really feel quite stop and start as the game launches into 3 cutscenes, each of over 3 to 5 minutes long, before rubbing you off into another battle. But like Dragon Quest Heroes and the other combination titles we've seen from KT, each brings their own uniqueness to the brand, and people who are getting into Warriors of Legend probably are already aware of that. And that's the thing. The game is just balls fun to play, whether you're jumping from Amazing Warrior to Amazing Warrior or using your new Martin Rush, which is basically a leader yelling to everyone, hey, we should go over there and kill everyone as a big group. And then you get like 400 warriors swinging, shooting, riding, and spearing their way through enemies in a far-off camera view, interspersed with these little action camera cuts. It's fantastic. Let me repeat, that is fantastic. As with all KT games, though, it has technical issues when it tries to do too much, and sometimes depth of field gets wonky during those particular bits and thinks that what it's focusing on should be blurry. But for the most part, it's awesome battle formations and sometimes the crushing of huge physical barriers. It's all very highly rewarding. That's the thing here. Much of this game is rewarding. First off, the combat is just stellar, and as you level up, you can find new weapon sets, which are like elements of fire and water and such that change your entire combo stream. Then there's the fact that apparently everyone in this game is a really big fan of everyone else and carries the equivalent of baseball cards inside hidden armor pockets. So sometimes when you kill someone, random cards fall to the ground. You can pick them up, and you can equip them to give up to 3 different stat boosts on your character, or give you skills like being harder to defeat in one-on-one combat, or not getting stunned as long from stun attacks. You can also take them and combine them to form higher level cards. It's not exactly new in games, but this doubling up of weapon arts as well as cards means that there's once again an almost sickening number of combination and ways to play. Add that to the fact that there's nearly no copying of moves from character to character. I mean, the game has a boatload of archer characters, for example, and all play completely unique and have varied animations, patterns, and special moves. It's really a testament to game design when working with so much like-for-like material and still being able to make it feel mostly unique. Lastly, each character can carry 2 weapons, while most characters getting very unique secondary weapons is the norm. One of the mains got ripped off and basically just got spear number 2. Lastly, there's co-op, online co-op, and battle modes. As you play the story and meet folks, you can start playing those characters in the other modes, and though there isn't a massive number of characters to play with, just a dozen, each is really, really unique in their own way. Fun factor. You know, if you've never gravitated towards the lawn mowing style combat of the Dynasty Warriors games, there might not be much here for you that changes that, other than what I think is a uniquely eclectic and interesting cast, as well as a really good, well-told story. However, for fans, we have another collaboration that builds on the momentum of recent good KT games, and though far from perfect, those imperfections seem to blur a bit when you're knee-deep in enemies and almost losing yourself amongst double-button combos into super moves, into secondary weapon moves, back into combos. It really is just fantastically fun to play. So I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. Warriors of Legend won't change your mind if you hate these style of games, but as a title itself, for me, it's a buy, and I like it more than Dragon Warrior. If you don't overlap in your love for these two series, then a sale would be your best bet, as many fans of the anime might not be into this style of games, and fans of the opposite and vice versa may not be into it as well. I enjoyed the hell out of the game, though. The title offers a very in-depth story, some excellent presentation chops, incredibly fun characters to play, and somewhat better technical performance and options, as well as once again showing that the collaboration attempts can teach a thing or two to their original line of titles. Where Dragon Quest did it with controlling monsters in a fantastically massive, popular IP, Warriors of Legend does it a bit different, with a unique roster of characters that keeps closer to the original idea of the main line, while adding in the anime stylings, and I think, in many ways, taking away from combat a little bit and adding to combat as well. Not perfect, but really, really fun. As always, if you like the video, hit thumbs up, maybe share us on Reddit, Twitter, whatever. If you dislike the video, thumbs down, and peace out.
必ず活躍してみせます